So Mel, obviously we want to talk to you about your new book, but I thought by way of introduction, perhaps we could go back a little bit deeper into your history, into your
Sure.
origin story, and talk about, Hollywood. What made you sort of leave that world and dive into your, I guess, your first love, which was journalism?
Right. Well, I grew up in a very strong, tight family. My mom, growing up, was a Democrat. My dad, a hardcore conservative. And I always was around very high level of education and traveling to historical places. So I had a very deep love for this country, for history, and for education. I eventually went to NYU for journalism, then returned and changed directions to film and kind of meshed them both together. Both things I love, which is the thing I love the most is research and uncovering things that don't really make sense and connecting dots on a global level of what has gone on in America. And then what I realized over time was that we were being divided and kind of fed a lot of stories that weren't necessarily based on facts, but based on the winner having the story told by them. They say the winner tells the story, and I learned along the way that that was absolutely true. So at the same time, in around the mid 2000s, I had worked from when I got to Hollywood in the late 90s straight through, and something really changed out there in the mid 2000s. I would say the entire divide and conquer, BLM, CRT, all this stuff, LGBTQ plus, the divide and conquer of every kind of thing you can think of started in Hollywood, and it was a kind of a shocking change in the mid 2000s to talent and earning it and working your way up, and meritocracy to did you fit certain boxes and were you willing to write certain content. And if you went in for a pitch at that point forward, it was like, well, can you put in this theme, or can you change this character's gender, or can you do this and that? And it just became very clear that Hollywood shifted a lot, especially as we went into the Obama years, to being more of a predictive programming propaganda machine that was pushing this country into the direction of globalism. It was as if all of the rules became upside down, and I started to feel like the whole town was like feeding off of the seven deadly sins, and it was really driving me to a place where I was like, I want nothing to do with this. And I started speaking out about it, and that's how my show came to be. I did a lot of other podcasts with friends, but then it just became so obvious because I was locked down in New York, and I remember the the impetus was I saw Cuomo come on stage with Bill Gates and Eric Schmidt, of formerly of Google, and announced that they were reimagining New York in the 2 weeks to stop the spread. And I said, people have to understand what's going on here. This is a repeat of the attempt to have a one world government at World War II kicking off. But now we have technology, technocracy, and the media in on it on a massive scale. So that's how I started my show.
And you started in March of 2020, so right at the onset of COVID. I expect that was, as you said, that was one of the sort of part of the impetus for starting the show.
Yep.
It's experienced really incredible growth. To what do you attribute that? You have over 500,000 followers now. Why
Yeah.
is the show so popular, do you think?
Well, what's interesting is that I do have that, but I was kicked off in 2020 of YouTube, and I never appealed or anything because I didn't want to censor myself because I saw things on a different level. I think that it is because I follow the money. I do something a little
Hmm.
different than a lot of other people. Early on, I was doing shows and with people that were speculating or had ideas, but I was like, there's a bigger picture here. It's a financial picture that is global, that is really hidden from the masses, starting obviously with the, I think, first coup against America, with the Federal Reserve being initiated
Right.
and then put
Yeah.
in 1912, 1913. And I also really believe that our country was taken over, that the coup really happened the day they shot JFK in 1963, and that we had been a captured nation since. And I came to believe, and I believe, that both Bushes, Obama, Clinton, and Biden are all part of this group of people that I call the parent company that really run America. And so for me, I think it was more opening people's eyes to the geopolitical rather than just concentrating on what's happening in America, really tracing, well, at what point did America get captured by the global public private partnership? And I think during COVID, they overplayed their hand, and it became very clear for anyone that was willing to pull back the curtain that we were being manipulated by forces above our government that the people were unaware of. So I really try to keep it based on truth. I give a lot of receipts. The melkshow.com has a free resource page to everything I talk about. I
Hmm.
try to put on there because for
Right.
me, it's really about educating the public and empowering people with knowledge that can empower them to be leaders and Paul Revere's wherever they are. Because the big changes that need to come to this country need to come by the people, for the people in our own backyards. We can all
Hmm.
point at DC and know that it's a compromised, corrupt cesspool, but the swamp is in your backyard. And I try to always empower people to do what they can where they are.
Hmm. I think this is one of the reasons for the popularity of your show, and hopefully also for your book, is that really what you're doing is you're inviting people to join a growing movement of ordinary citizens who could do extraordinary things and sort of
Yep.
restore power to the people and away from the what Trump calls the deep state, the blob or whatever that is,
Right.
whatever seems to be dictating politics not only in your country but throughout the West.
Right.
And so this really becomes the focus of the book, isn't it? This is why
Yeah.
it's called Americans Anonymous. So perhaps talk a little bit about why you decided to write the book.
Okay, well, like I guess 20 years ago, I experienced in Hollywood a lot of friends going through recovery, and I saw real miracles coming out of those rooms for whatever it was, for gambling, drugs, alcohol. But the original big book and the 12 steps in that book, I saw changed lives, like unbelievably, from down, depressed, near suicidal, to thriving and being leaders and accomplishing things and helping other people. There's just a great message in that entire program that was written in the 30s. So over the last 4 years, I've been all over the country. I speak at a lot of events, and so we made it our mission to like talk to the actual people. We were through 30 states, and what I started to realize, I don't believe that there's been a Republican or Democrat party for many decades, certainly since '63, that it's been a uniparty, and that we have been fed the illusion that they're just different enough or similar enough that it doesn't really matter who's in there. And we've all been fed this learned helplessness as citizens. And as I was talking to people all over the country, people were skipping over the left and right, Republican and Democrat. They were just talking about our government being totally out of control, totally not working for the people, by the people, unconcerned with the consent of the governed, and frankly, turning our country into a police state and a surveillance state. So to me, I was seeing people that were just suffering, feeling like our country was at rock bottom and there was nothing they could do. And it was very rare that anyone brought up political parties or any of that. It was more a heartbreaking feeling that we had lost our country. So
Hmm.
to me, and it was across the board, races, religions, classes. I was getting the same feedback from almost everyone. A kind of sad understanding that we had lost the country and we might never get it back. And this had nothing to do with candidates. It really had to do with feeling that the entire government had turned on the people and no longer was concerned with us. So in my journey, I wanted to explain how that happened, and that we have been systematically fed this disease, I feel, an addiction to conflict and chaos that is dividing us by race, religion, class, gender, whatever it is. It's a divide and conquer, death by a thousand cuts, long term strategy. And I just brought out a lot of things that people didn't know. And there's a lot of tools in there also, because I've interviewed many people, some that were victims, survivors, very few of them, of MK Ultra, CIA mind control, and people that had been in addiction and had recovered. And I realized, just like with any addiction, the problem is you, and the solution is also you. So, and there's that turning to God and fellowship and admitting your wrongs. And a lot of the book, uh, delves into sick is our secrets, which is a big recovery phrase. that is about kind of putting it out on paper, what you've done, how you got there, and then making amends. And I feel like America needed an intervention, needs to be honest about our past, needs to demand transparency from the powers that be that hold back a lot of that truth, because they've been using the idea of reasons of national security since at least 63 to not tell the American people about crimes within our government. And from that point on, it's really just been about empowering people to understand what's going on so that they can be effective in getting the people in their community, in their towns. Hopefully, I do say that we should have Freedom Watch groups or American Anonymous groups in every town, in every county of our country to be overseeing the government. We have to change our relationship with the government that is upside down by design and take it back into our hands. And we
Hmm.
don't do that if we understand who is really doing that, which to me is a group above our government.